Welcome to Marriage IQ, the podcast for the intelligent spouse.
I'm Dr. Heidi Hastings.
And I'm Dr. Scott Hastings.
We are two doctors, two researchers, two spouses, two lovers, and two incredibly different human beings coming together for one purpose: to transform the stinky parts of your marriage into scintillating ones, using intelligence mixed with a little fun.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. We are finishing up with this episode, Missy and Ben McKay. Missy is
Mrs. Texas American. So proud of her.
And we were finishing up here. In this episode, she takes on her platform that she's been advocating for years. So let's jump on in. The water's warm. Welcome.
Well, I would love to make a little shift here if we can. And Missy, give you another platform to share your platform. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you feel so passionate about that you want to share on a national level?
Yes.
And maybe an international level even?
Yes. So when I was in high school, a teacher was fired because he was viewing pornography on his computer at school. And so in conversations with my peers, I realized how many of them were unaware or uneducated on the harmful and addictive effects of pornography. And it's something I had been taught in my home and through church. And so it's something I felt like I understood, and I was surprised at the lack of knowledge among my peers. These are other teenagers. And so this is something that was on my mind, and because of that experience, and I found an organization who was brand new at the time. It's called Fight the New Drug. And they've now been around for about 14 or 15 years. And their goal is to educate teens on the harms of pornography using scientific facts and personal accounts. And so I thought, we need the science behind this. Teens need to know that this is actually, there are things going on in their brain that are causing addictive effects. And so I partnered with Fight the New Drug. I started doing pageants as an 18-year-old, and I was a local title holder and graduated from high school and partnered with Fight the New Drug to bring their assembly presentation they do for high schoolers and middle schoolers to my high school. And ABC's Nightline came and did a segment on it, and it was so exciting and fun. And I just thought, I want to keep doing this. This is so important to me. And I just had some great traction there. So I continued doing pageants. And wherever I was bringing Fight the New Drug in. I brought them to my university. I brought them to my college town. I involved the school board. I involved the city council. And I love to see the local support that there was for helping teens and young adults understand that pornography affects individuals, relationships, and society. And so that was my platform from 2011 to 2015, the years I was during college doing pageants. And it was very interesting because, so my mom was coming with me to all of these conferences and assemblies. And so as a family, we were becoming more educated on this topic. And so it wasn't until after I had finished competing in pageants that I found out that my dad had struggled for years with addiction, that he disclosed to my mom his struggle and started in recovery. And so it's something that I didn't realize was blessing my own family, my own personal work on that issue. It became much more personal to me. And so 10 years later, seeing my parents' scintillating relationship, how they've come through that as a couple, has been so inspiring to me. And so something that I feel really strongly about is helping families and teenagers and couples see that there is hope on the other side of addiction. Looking at my parents' relationship, how much they love each other, having come through this together. And I want to make a note also that my mom did not drag my dad through recovery, that it never works that way. My dad decided that he was ready to recover and that he wanted his marriage and his family more than he wanted his addiction. And he decided that he was going to change. And so my dad pulled himself through that recovery with the support of my mom. And in her betrayal trauma, she had his support, that the two together could work through this with the help of counseling and other groups to help. And that they also then became facilitators through other addiction recovery programs. And so just so proud of them for the way that they've come through that and shown others how a relationship can be, despite those setbacks and really, really difficult things that can happen in a relationship and in the world that we're in are very common. And so just a message of hope and of healing and education is the key to that.
So I just want to say, I want to make a definition here. I think most people know what pornography is, but let me try to define it. It's viewing or reading, I guess, listening to people having sex or nudity that creates some kind of a sexual response. Would you agree with that generally, or is there anything else that would make
Yeah,
that definition more clear?
yeah. Just anything that's created to intentionally arouse someone. Um, I guess I would say that would be considered pornography.
So here's the thing here, Missy, and you can jump into Heidi. This is a topic that not a lot of people want to talk about, right? It's something that we don't talk about in public space. Generally speaking, it's a very private thing, but yet it is also very pervasive and it affects men a lot. I think from a scientific standpoint, and I don't fight the new drug should have some data on this too, but I think we found that 95+% of men have had a history of pornography and 65% of men view it monthly. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. And women are starting to view it more. It's always going to be in the minority, in my opinion. But we're still looking at probably what 20 to 30% of women who view it regularly.
It's 40
Oh,
about
40?
right now.
Okay.
But most often they're viewing it with their spouse or with their partner instead of solo, where men are viewing it more often solo. And even those couples where it's agreed upon that they view it together, studies are showing that long term it has net negative effects on the relationship. Even though it may start out good, men more often will still, that won't be enough for them. They think it will, but it
Yeah.
won't.
So all the studies, the long-term studies on pornography use, generally speaking, and in relationships are universally negative. They're poor outcomes.
On
They
long-term
they
relationships.
might find positive effects in the first few months of like a boyfriend girlfriend relationship, which is fascinating to me that they did studies on this. But in marriage, it's pretty much universally negative. Depression, anxiety, conflict, contention,
Poor outcomes on the relationship and
divorce.
on their sexual relationship, divorce affairs, all of those things are what studies are showing.
And other people too, Missy, you're saying that it's not really an addiction. In fact, if you go to some therapists, they say, well, this is normal part of living. What do you say to that?
So I would say if it's causing you to put other things in your life that you consider important, you are turning to pornography over those things and setting those things aside in order to prioritize pornography in your life. And I would say if you're seeing that as a hindrance to your relationships or the things that you're committed to do, that has become an addiction to you. That has become something that's getting in the way of your progress. And so that's where you see that an addiction of any kind is in the way. It gets in the way of your progress, is because you're depending on that thing and going to that thing, and it's undercutting your goals. It's undercutting the things that you want to be doing because you can't stop. That's what an addiction is. There is exposure and there is kind of coming back to occasionally, but then if we're talking about addiction, that's something that you cannot stop coming back to that thing. And you say you're not going to, but then you are. It's finding yourself coming back again and again.
And what is Fight the New Drug research? The research that they're finding, what's that saying it does to your brain?
So it just creates a dependence, just the same way any drug does. This is the new drug as of 14 years ago, and they started as pornography affects the brain the same way. It's that chasing that high, that dopamine, and a lot of that stems from maybe that bored, hungry, angry, tired. There, it is in those situations that people find that they are going to that pornography. There is a lack. There's something that they're trying to fill, and they're looking for that dopamine hit. And so a lot of people, of course, today, even more pervasively because of social media, internet, all of that, and AI, there is new territory there that to be aware of, that pornography is so pervasive in our lives. And with how it is everywhere, it has become a real problem.
So I agree with the addiction definition. I do very firmly believe that it can be an addiction, pornography use, just like anything else, like cocaine or smoking, alcohol. They might use a little bit different pathways, but the end result of we define addiction by signs and symptoms of if you're not able to work because you're watching porn all day and you can't support your family, or you're not doing the necessary things, that is an addiction by definition. Same thing we apply for alcohol and other drugs. But
well, there are different perspectives on that, and yes, it does change brains. But regardless, it still is harmful to relationships, and it's harmful to children. I think one of the aspects that you touched on with your platform was pornography with children. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yes, I think we can all, I mean, there are different opinions on, I guess, the legality of freedom of speech in regards to pornography, of the creation of it. But I think something we can all agree on is the harms on children and their developing brains, and how we should protect children from explicit content. And so as far as children, I think our biggest effort should be in protecting them, because as a child, and in the way that their brains are developing so quickly, those neuro pathways are developing in those brain cells, being exposed to pornography at such a young age can create an even stronger addiction in the long run. And the pornography industry understands that. So they are targeting children through YouTube channels and different ways to expose them earlier and get them. I'm familiar with loved ones who were exposed at very young ages and became addicted very quickly. And I think that also changes per person too, because I know there are some people who have, I've heard it called addictive personalities, where, and maybe that their brain, there are some people who smoke a cigarette and they're addicted, or see pornography
Right.
and they're addicted. And that's not everyone, but I think generally the younger children are exposed, the harder it is for them in the long run. And so because of the content of pornography, their understanding and view of sexuality is altered at a young age. Of course, pornography, the way that it's created, it is unhealthy expectations about sexuality, even violent. And so that is something we obviously want to protect children and teenagers from, is what to expect in a sexual relationship. That's really important to help build healthy sexuality in relationships.
So how can parents be more vigilant in teaching their children about healthy sexuality and about pornography?
Yes,
Are there any tools out there?
Yeah,
or?
so you can have, I mean, there are filters to help protect your children on phones or computers, but in the long run, in the world that we live in, you can't protect them, you have to prepare them. I guess you can't just protect them, you have to also prepare them for what they're going to
Right.
see. There's a book called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures that really helps parents. There's Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, which is a book that you can use with like 4-year-olds, and then there's Good Pictures, Bad Pictures for older children. And so that is a really great resource for parents to talk to their children about what is pornography. And because I think sometimes the education doesn't happen because parents don't have the words. And so
Exactly.
I think Good Pictures, Bad Pictures is a really great book to help parents have the words to know how to talk to their children. And I think there's fear of talking about it will lead to exposure or interest in pornography. But because we know that children are at some point going to be exposed, I think the average age is 11. And so the exposure will come. I've talked to parents who have children who have laptops that they use at school. Like, exposure has come through there as much as they try to be vigilant, that it happens there too. And so in a world of technology, giving parents the words to teach their children, I think, is one of the most important things. And there are a lot of websites. The National Center on Sexual Exploitation has a lot of partnerships with different organizations that help educate on pornography, and also links to things like sex trafficking and how pornography kind of fuels the demand for that. Fight the New Drug has a lot of great resources. There's a really great resource they have. It's fightthenewdrug.org/parents. And they have all these resources that parents can use, especially in conversation starters. So if we're talking about giving them the words, the very first words in just having a conversation, and they even break that down, like, I am a parent, or I am a spouse, or I am, whatever that relationship is. And you can click on that, and that will help break down for you the beginnings of what that conversation could look like to open the door to that. And also taking the shame away from that, where children and teenagers want to know why. So I think understanding the effects of how pornography can affect the brain and relationships, and kind of leading with the foundation of we want you to be safe and healthy and happy. And so here's why we're talking about this. And if you're interested in pornography, here's what pornography is. And if that's interesting to you, your body's working. Like that's actually, we're made to be attracted to each other. And so this is why that might be interesting to you, but here is why that's dangerous in this form. And, just kind of starting it along those lines takes the shame away from that. I am not bad because I'm, maybe interested in looking at pornography, but I can understand why I shouldn't, if that makes sense.
I wish I would have had
good.
all this training when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of
That's
great
actually-
resources for parents now, and there are more and more. So,
And I'm going to let you share any of those that you want. Send them to me and we'll stick them in the show notes because this is really powerful.
I was 14 when I was exposed to it. So I got a few extra years under my belt. Of course, I was in another era before cell phones and internet. I just remember thinking, dang, I'm not used to all these feelings, right? And it became something it was a friend of mine that shared it with me. And I regret that moment. Here's the problem. Here's part of this problem. I'm a male. I was born a male. I identify as a male. I'm a male. And males, genetically, it's driven into our DNA, want to reproduce for some crazy reason. And so that's why we seek out mates. And I think that while it can be something that we do because we're lacking something in our life, it also can be just because we're a dude and we have these genetic proclivities, these predispositions. And so we have to fight a lot harder than our female counterparts every day to avoid pornography. It's just hard. And I think I need to put that in there for the guys to say, hey, anytime you're tempted to look at this, it's not because necessarily every single time you're depressed, you're anxious, you're lacking something emotionally. Now, you might very well be, but it also may just be that you're functioning as a male. And that's normal. Now, the problem is giving into that temptation, right? And so that becomes a lifelong process. If anyone thinks that it gets easier as you get older, it doesn't.
Dang it.
Yeah. And so this is also why when you talk about sex trafficking, it's almost 100% males seeking out the sex. Again, it's part of the genetic, that predisposition. Not ever
uncontrolled, just gone wild.
But here's the thing. This is not an excuse. This is not an excuse to view pornography. This is not an excuse to have sex with anyone who's not your spouse. This is not an excuse. It is an explanation, though, of where we are coming from as men. It is part of our DNA. And for those of us who do not engage in these things, just know, women, it is really, really, really hard for us. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, your father, he had this problem, and now you said their marriage is scintillating. But wait, he had this problem. He had this problem. That's bad. That's terrible. And you're saying it's better than it was before?
Yes, it's amazing. Yes. So yeah, and the key there is desire. It was my dad's desire to move forward and put that behind him. And I would say that there are people too who have the desire and they keep falling back into it. And that's very frustrating. But I would say, but keep working at it because it's that desire that's going to move you forward, and that you are always in recovery. You are not recovered. If you have had this addiction or dependence on pornography, that you always have to be working at it. You're going to have to do things a little bit differently because of what your weaknesses are. And that's okay. You like knowing that and owning it, which is what my dad has done, and continually working for that recovery every single day has been something that I've really admired that he has done, and in prioritizing that relationship, that knowing what he wanted was that he wanted an amazing relationship. He wanted his family. And this addiction would take him away from that continually. And so I'm just so grateful to him for that decision, and that he works every day to continue to combat that, because it wasn't just a one-time thing. He does it every single day for the past 10 years. He has decided to prioritize his marriage and his family.
That's fantastic.
And we can't talk about that without talking about your mom's side too, because there's a lot of wounding that happens for a lot of women. Of course, that's what my research was on, was the experience of women who were married to men who had problematic pornography use, is the term I used in my research. And that is a wounding that can come up and be triggered to equally intensive. Scott, you explained some of the biology of men, but women, on the other hand, have biology that
react.
Yeah, I mean,
Isn't marriage a cruel paradox?
And even for the women in my study who started out saying, yeah, no big deal, this is fine, you can do it, they found, at least for those who it becomes definitely more problematic or compulsive for, this is not what I signed up for. This is hurtful. This is damaging our marriage. This is damaging our sex life. One woman said her husband had wrecked his car 5 times while viewing pornography while he was driving. I mean, it impacts their finances. It impacts a lot of things. And I know this isn't the experience for everyone, but there are thousands of therapists who specifically work with betrayal trauma, who work with women and with couples and even men who've been betrayed. This isn't only a male issue, but it's a huge business that is emerging to support women to also be in recovery, like you said about your mom, to not sit in shame and not sit in distress and not sit in just a state of woundedness forever, but to also seek help to get their own healing. So
he had to choose to recover, but she had to choose to trust again.
And that takes time and work.
And it was not right away, definitely.
Yeah, it takes sometimes a couple of years or more, especially in those longer term marriages where maybe it was kept a secret for a long time. That's turns women's understanding of reality, largely women, upside down, and takes efforts at rebuilding trust. And some decide they just can't get over it, and there's no judgment there on our part. But if that is part of your marriage, listeners, and that's something that you want to turn around, I love, Missy, that you shared the positive,
wonderful story
journey that your parents have gone on, and that it is possible when both partners are getting the recovery help that they need.
And you're saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're saying that their marriage now is better than it was before.
I think
is
they
that
would say,
correct?
I guess I can't speak for them, but as a child seeing my parents' relationship, I think with any addiction, you see that there's a wedge there, maybe an unspoken wedge there. And so when you can get that wedge out, and that's a painful process, but then you start that healing, you're obviously, when the wedge isn't there, you're going to have such a better relationship. And something that I remember talking to them about is the idea of, you were talking about Thanos, like at the end of the day, what was hard for you? Like, what were the highs? What were the lows? Because that's going to help you come together through that process. And in talking about ways that, or maybe reasons that people are reaching to pornography, it could be that they're feeling shame, or that they're feeling sad, or that they're feeling these stress. And so if you can come together as a couple in that Thanos situation process, that can be a great help in healing your relationship.
Yeah, that tool is used in recovery from this addiction. Yes. So go ahead.
It's been really cool how her parents have shared their recovery journey with others. Her father started going to these it was like a non-denominational Christian men's retreat. It's called Warrior Heart, and it's kind of based off the principles of the book Wild at Heart by John Eldridge, who's I think a Christian minister based in Colorado Springs. And so her father started going to these retreats every year where they talk about fatherhood. And I would say maybe 50% are men who are recovering from some type of addiction, and the other men are just looking for just brotherly strength from other men, or just want to just think about how they can be a better father or a spouse or connect with God. And Trent, he started bringing along his sons, and then they started raving about it. And so I went and I brought two of my friends to one of these retreats, and it was life changing. It was amazing. They have you put your phone away for a couple days, and it was absolutely amazing. And they have a women's component for Warrior Heart as well, women's retreats, where a lot of them are these women who have a husband that's overcoming some type of an addiction, or maybe these women are struggling with addictions themselves. So it's called Warrior Heart if anyone's interested, but I would highly recommend that. It's just been cool that he's shared that journey with others, and their kind of trial and recovery has helped others to recover and improve their lives.
Well, and as a parent, what an amazing thing to be able to be open instead of secretive about it and give sons resources.
Mhm.
Because if I'm guessing, I'm a woman, I'm not a man, but I'm guessing if if I'm experiencing that drought of pornography myself, and I think it makes me bad because I don't know that others around me are doing the same thing, then I am unable to get the resources that I need for help.
She's not, by the way. You have no temptation to view.
Not my thing.
Scott, I was going to say too, you were talking about how men are primarily addicted, or I guess attracted to pornography or drawn to pornography. And I would say acknowledging from a parental point of view and conversation, acknowledging that we're sexual beings is so good with your children, and understanding this is like Ben and I are religious. And so understanding that our creator created us to be sexual beings, and that is a very important part of our experience here as husband and wife, and also helping kids understand that, like I said earlier, like nature is working and this is part of your experience here. And let's channel that, because if left completely wild, that's not going to lead to, I guess, your best interest or a life that you are happy in. And so, as a parent, just guiding that, not shutting it down, but guiding it and acknowledging it and helping your child process that experience is such a good way to help them through it.
I love that.
I think what just came to my mind when you were saying that, Missy, is for me, my creator blessed me with emotions. And if I let my emotions run wild without learning how to tame those and get them under control, then that also may ruin my relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So
Good
we
point.
have different parts of our identity, different parts of our body and who we are that need to be controlled, that need to be refined, maybe is better than controlled. I like refined better. That we're continually working to become the best version of ourselves rather than just letting things run wild.
Becoming a better person, a more scintillating person, you need something bigger than yourself. And so that's why I think that naturally people of faith kind of are attracted to things like this, but I think this applies to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Just realize there needs to be something bigger than you out there.
Well, we've loved this conversation with both of you. Are there some things that you would like to just leave our listeners with as a final parting thought?
Some of the best marriage advice that I would pass on is, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. And so that's something that I keep in mind in our relationship is, if I just want to go 100 miles an hour, I can. But if I want to go 100 miles, I'm going to go with Ben. And I'd much rather go farther than go fast. So I'm grateful for my relationship.
Love that.
Marry somebody like Missy. That's my only advice.
Keep growing, keep learning. It's a process.
Keep singing and humming.
Yes.
Just keep that happy disposition. That's really great. Well, thank you for sharing amazing resources with us, telling your story, teaching us how to support each other in our dreams. We love all that we've heard, and we invite our listeners to check out more information on this on social media this coming week.
Do you guys have a website?
We're just normal people, but if you wanna, you can look up my Instagram. I post things occasionally educating on the harms of pornography. It's just at Malissa, Malissa K.mckay.
Okay, great.
All right.
We'll put a link to that in our show notes as well.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And
That's a wrap.
Yeah, that's a wrap. Remember that the intelligent spouse knows that to have a scintillating marriage first requires a change in themselves.
You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more information throughout the week on the topics that we've covered with the McKays today, and invite you to check those out and follow us on all of those. Sign up for our tip of the week that comes with an action post. It takes 1 minute to read it and something that you can do with your spouse that week to create a more scintillating marriage.
All right, folks, that's a wrap. We'll see you next time on another exciting episode of Marriage IQ.